You know what I could do without altogether? The French. Like I could just do without them. That's all. What, you guys don't believe me? Or you're like, but Noah, what did the French ever do to you? I'll tell you what they did. Berets. What kind of a stupid hat is that? A beret. It's probably the stupidest kind of hat in the history of hats, right? And it's all floppy and it's a circle for a hat. And look, I'm just not for them. All right. I'm anti beret. And you know what a real hat is? A Ushanka, right? The Russians, they know their hats, my friends. I'll tell you what, it's not just hats though, right? It's those stupid black and white striped shirts they all wear, right? Like, how's your entire country just have one shirt everybody wears like they're a robber in an oldie timey, silent movie or something? Oh, and the little red scarves they all wear too. It's like they're trying to look like mimes or something. And what's up with baguettes? Anyway, French bread is just skinny Italian bread, right? And baguettes are like bagels that didn't have the balls to be a circle or something. And don't even get me started on croissants or on Americans who insist on saying it with a French accent so they sound worldly and go croissant or whatever. They're worse than those guys that get obsessed with Japanese culture, right? And then like walk around in kimonos all day. I don't. Here's the thing, right? We are talking about people who eat frogs, and not even like whole frogs, like it's some fraternity prank, right? Or like you got to swallow your pet goldfish because people in fraternities clearly don't have any souls, but just the legs of frogs. Like, think about this, okay? That wasn't always the case, right? Food customs come and go, so that means that there were some Frenchmen sitting around one day, right? And they're like walking by a pond or something. And one dude points at a frog and goes, yo, I wonder what that thing tastes like. Right? But that can't be the end of it. One of his buddies had to go, let's find out. And so they caught this frog and they were like, what part of this thing do you guys think we should eat? And one guy's like, I don't know, maybe his belly. And then, the guy that they all look to for leadership, like the smart guy of the group, he adjusts his beret and his little red scarf and he goes, no, dude, we're going to eat the legs. And the other guys were like, dude, yes. Right. And I'm sitting here like, you got to be effing kidding me. These are the grossest, skinniest, slimiest little things on the planet. You're eating a effing reptile, people. And that's not all that they eat that's gross either. They suck down them snails like there's just no tomorrow. Right? Like someone was like, if you guys don't drive the snail extinct by pretending they're fancy when they're really just effing a gross effing bug, I'm going to kill your families. And they were all like, well, time to eat us some snails, I guess. We don't want our families to get killed. I guess, after they discover eating reptile legs, are they reptiles or amphibians, by the way? Is there a difference? I don't know. They discovered eating those things. And then after that, eating a snail is just, whatever, no big deal. But dude, gross. Also, Foucault, gross, right? Jesus Christ. I have no idea what I'm talking about here. Why do you guys ever even listen to me? Okay. For real, frogs and snails and berets aside, I could seriously do without the French because of French theory, right? It is, after all, the theory of the people who eat the legs of frogs. I'm not going to say I'm an expert on it or anything, but in everything I've read, there's nothing novel or new that wasn't, put into a more concise framework by people like Ilyenkov and Levant, right? Even the stuff I kind of like Althusser's theory of ideology, is put into a better view in Ilyenkov's dialectics of the ideal. Leotard is a reotard as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think we have time to get into the problems with Foucault, who is one of the fathers of wokeism and liberal hedonism, sex obsession politics, and the me, hyper individualism. One of the first people to clarify that theory in an academic setting and to advocate for pedophilia. So that, sucks. I'm just saying, I wouldn't really be all that bothered if the entire country just sort of fell into the water. Lost City of Atlantis style, I mean, even their most famous guy was actually Italian. So we just wouldn't be losing much. I don't know. That's all I'm saying. What's up, everybody? I'm Noah Kerchevic. This is Noah's show, and it's Monday night. So we are here to take your calls, complain about the French, and talk about wizards, I guess. With me, as always, is Daniel Gutierrez, the best producer I've ever met in my entire life. What's up, Daniel?
Not much. Thank you for expressing my my feelings towards the French. Having spent a fair amount of time in France myself, I can tell you that they're totally insufferable.
They gotta go, right? They gotta go. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, in all seriousness, yeah, they suck. They're terrible.
Look, just Foucault is bad enough. I mean, he's Foucault, right? like they got Foucault, they got Berets, they got Chris. Like, there's nothing good in France. I'm joking. There's some great people in France, and our comrades there are wonderful. I'm just saying your country is probably better off if it falls into the ocean.
Yeah. Well, I think kind of like the point that we're getting at is that one of the main fetters to the socialist movement in the West is like identity politics, wokeism, and all of this like postmodern fake Marxism. And we can thank in large part French theory for that. So that's really what we're talking about when we make all these jokes about the French, because obviously the Paris Commune was based. There's a lot of really amazing sort of theory and movements and revolutionary sort of struggles that have come out of France. But at the moment, we're dealing with. What have
they done for us lately, Daniel?
Yeah, exactly. There isn't really much going on in France right now.
Look. Not to discredit the Paris Commune, which was world historic, right? All I'm saying is that people act like it's the first dictatorship of the proletariat in history, but they're wrong. The first dictatorship of the proletariat in history was in the USA, in certain American states in the South during the reconstruction of democracy. It also lasted way longer than the Commune. And sorry, French, we got you beat. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, in terms of bourgeois liberal theory, like definitely they had a lot of the leading lights, right? But since then, in terms of like Marxism and stuff like that, as KP Gen is spelling out for us in the chat, that French theory is a US product. It's basically a commodification of Marxism to be bought and sold in the academic sort of market of ideas.
100%. And I would add that it's not just a commodification of it, it's a falsification of it, right? It twists and distorts Marxism into something it is not. It abandons all of the primary sort of observations of Marxism, and for the most part abandons the materialist aspect of dialectical logic. And it was sort of heavily funded by the CIA and the Ford Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation in order to create what there's a CIA whistleblower named Thomas Braden, what he called a compatible left, right? The ruling class were worried that the intelligentsia were siding with the Soviets and the working class in general, right? And so they needed to create a left that could funnel people's anger and resentment at the system into something that not only wasn't dangerous to the ruling class, but actually acted as a bulwark against working class organization. And that's one of the most important things about it that we need to learn this kind of stuff. Because otherwise we fall into these sort of anti-communist traps. We believe Foucault is this like revolutionary or and not just, you know, a pedophile that's pushed at us by the CIA.
Yeah, and I don't know if you had a chance to check it out, Noah, but Haas did a really interesting X live space yesterday where he went into some of the critiques of the ACP related to the the question of LGBT, and I think it was actually a very good. It was a very insightful and thoughtful sort of breakdown of the extent to which these questions are sucking all the air out of the room, and they're causing us to spend far too much time fighting these battles over niche cultural war issues, when we have so much work to do. We just really have our work completely cut out for us, and we don't have time to be litigating microaggressions every 5 seconds, and to be getting caught up all in our feelings before every meeting, every sort of time that we have to get together to do practical work, that we have to create safe spaces and things like that. So yeah, we're just doing our best to create an alternative. We're not perfect, but that's not how this works. You can't demand perfection. Like, you just have to work with what you got, and you have to move forward. And I think that Haas did a really great job of explaining that.
Yeah, he's pretty good at that kind of thing. I'll have to check that out. Is it one of the spaces him and Eddie have been doing?
Yeah, it was last night on X.
After I was already asleep then.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously. I'll check it out tomorrow while I'm at work. Look, I mean, you're not wrong, right? The main impediment we seem to have right now is being attacked by liberals, claiming some connection with Marxism or whatever that's an error. And, a lot of them are well-meaning, but it's just this demand, me, right? It's put my feelings first, put who I am attracted to before the class struggle, put the way I want to express myself before the class struggle. We cannot unite the working class because some of the working class doesn't put me in front of everything. And it's just this really self-aggrandizing middle-class conceit that just grinds the ever-loving shit out of my gears. I don't know. Either way, a ton of stuff has happened over the last week that we haven't even gotten to yet. A new president got elected, or, whatever, I guess.
Yeah, and it's almost, I mean, it's so funny because I thought that Trump was going to win, but I didn't want to I wasn't I wasn't going to gloat about it or whatever, but it is kind of, it is a little bit satisfying to see liberals crash out over something that I think we were all really prepared for. I mean, we were definitely prepared for the possibility that Trump would get elected. It wasn't this massive sort of surprise or shock to us that we didn't really know what to do or how to respond or how to interpret it. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I think it means to be a communist and a Marxist, is to just is to not be sort of swayed by all these spontaneous sort of eruptions of liberal emotions, and to just be very rational and pragmatic and to analyze the situation. And so Trump got elected, and we're now gonna have to organize under that, and it's fine. I don't really see that as a major problem for us. If anything, it's it both hastens the demise of the Democratic Party, and will also in the long run expose Trump as a false prophet. So you always got to look for the silver lining.
100%, brother. I think. Look, I saw the videos of liberals crying into cameras, and how do you not know You know what I mean? Like the Democrats are literally running on "We're not Trump." That's it. They put forward these people that people hate, and then try to shame people when they don't want to vote for them. That strategy fails every time. So I don't know why they're surprised, and they act as if Trump's gonna like take away a democracy we don't have. The last time Trump was president, things steadily declined, just as they steadily declined under Biden. Not much difference. I want to say, though, off the subject, Thomas Russell puts it perfectly here. I don't know enough to know if I'd fully agree with everything you Midwestern Marx people believe. I know enough to know that in a disagreement between you and the compatible left, you're right. That's just kind of how we all got to roll these days. When people can explain why they believe they're correct, it doesn't matter if we all agree or disagree on 1,000 things. It just matters if we can agree on the primary thing, which is capitalism is the enemy, right? And when the compatible left, as we're calling them, talk, they don't put capitalism as the primary enemy. They always make it about something else, about their problem. And that's what bothers me. I don't know. What do you think, Daniel?
Yeah, no, I mean, that I'm sure that ties, back into the whole conversation about French theory and postmodernism and identity politics.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that was the other thing that Hawes went into, which was very insightful, was a woman from England called and asked about organizing in the workplace. She was like a minimum wage working class person living in England. And Hawes went really deep into the sort of like the ontology of individuality versus collectivism, and
Like
that's
as in like an ideological starting point, I assume.
yeah, exactly, as a sort of like a way of understanding the process through which one has to shed their individuality in order to become part of a collective, right? Whether that's a collective workplace, whether that's a party, or in the future, like a socialist, sort of nation or society or civilization.
Right. Like that like traumatic moment when you recognize that humanity is outside of your individual persona. That it's
Precisely.
created and you are part of something bigger than yourself.
Precisely. It's not something that you directly have control over, and actually on a sort of on a broader or like a cosmic level, you're kind of insignificant, like sort of in the grander scheme of things. Like you really can't like elevate yourself above like the sort of the actual importance that and the sort of the degree to which you actually are significant. And I think we all have to be humble in the face of the movement of history, and put our egos aside, and start to work together.
That's one of the big problems with the falsification of Marxism, is this sort of reduction of Marxism to like voluntary action, right? To, well, you're a Marxist if you say this, that, and the other, and you want to do these couple things, right? That's not Marxism. That's not what Marxism is. But it's this individualist approach to it that we get sort of jammed down our throats as we're growing up, and we don't even know it. I want to say, though, we're getting a ton of questions rolling in the chat. If you guys want to make sure we get to your questions, join the Discord and call into the show. The main part of the show, we'll be taking your calls. If not, I apologize if I miss them. I will not miss a super chat, though. Just a public service announcement. We are a completely people-funded institute. Every single dime in our budget is from you guys. Despite what the anti-communists on social media will tell you about how we're all secretly a CIA and they tracked down some, truck that we rented, and it's actually a truck only rented by FBI. Like the dumbest. No. Every dime we have is from you guys, and we appreciate every single one of them. I did get a couple questions I wanted to make sure I addressed before we get into your calls. So, Whack Nate asks, what the hell is a Midwestern Marx? You got me. I don't know how to pronounce this. It says, I went to my local DSA meeting for the first time, and they were all straight up Marxists. They're doing weekly reading of ML Mao and labor work. Do you think there is room for redemption for the DSA? It's a really good question. There are good people, trying to do their best in all kinds of organizations. The DSA as an organization, though, is completely compromised. It's part of that compatible left we were, talking about earlier, and it's run by apparatchiks of the ruling class. So I would say that there is no redemption for DSA as an organization, and they're reactionary, extremely reactionary. However, good people within the organization of DSA can be won over and become good communists at some point. I would also caution that just because people are reading Marxist-Leninists and call themselves Marxists does not mean they're Marxist. It might mean they're on the right road, but a lot of the time people don't lose that individualist false consciousness that we were just talking about. There's no sort of aha moment where they say to themselves, everything I used to think about Marxism was kind of wrong. Here's what it really is. And that's necessary for all of us. So just be wary. Just because someone can quote 1,000 things Marx has said doesn't make them a Marxist. What do you think, Daniel?
Yeah, I agree with that. Because I read every single day, and studying Marxism and learning all the different sort of, because Marxism is really kind of almost like this vast cathedral of knowledge. I've heard it described in that way, and there's just so many aspects to it. There's revolutionary strategy, there's party tactics, there's philosophy, there's historical materialism, dialectic materialism. It's just like a million things that you need to study, and you just got to build up your comprehension and your understanding through daily study and practice. And I think that's actually the thing that most people miss, is the practice part.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I think that the studying, look, Lenin tells us that Capital is a master extrapolation of Marxism, right? That we can read Capital and learn the dialectical materialist worldview. And that's true. But the way we're taught to read Capital is as a sort of empiricist. We can't get into a whole thing. We got a whole show to do. But the book I have coming out will debunk a lot of the sort of primary mythology about what Marxism is and get us back to really understanding Marxist analysis before it gets into the analysis of the life and death of the middle classes and the American people. Anyway, like I said, we got a whole show to get to, and we are going to do it right after this.
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said: you look like a Russian, you look like a red, and if you're fond of your skin and your head, beware the High Sheriff of Hazard. ain't got nothing to fear. We throw the old bastard right out on his ear. Farewell to High Sheriff Hazard.
Yeah.
Here
Thanks,
I
Ray.
am. And let me tell you, I think we're gonna have a great show tonight, guys. I was told, I don't know if Daniel, if you can hear me. I saw in the chat someone said that our Discord link is expired. This Discord link thing has been driving me crazy, right? We have it set to never expire, and we should have one that just says discord.com/MidwesternMarks or whatever, but that won't work. Whenever I try to do it, I need someone who isn't a complete dum-dum with computers to get that done for me. Maybe I'll call Eddie later on. So, Daniel, if you can hear me, can you post an updated copy of the link in the chat for people, please, in case they'd like to call in? Thanks, brother. Anyway, we're going to get started right quick with your calls. Let me share my screen and we'll get to it. What do you guys think? Should we do that, or I don't know. That's kind of the point of the show. So I feel like maybe we should. I do want to warn you guys, though, before you call in, double and triple check that you are not a bozo. We have a very strict no bozos allowed rule. Sometimes wizards will, try to sneak their way in, but your boy Noah has a nose for wizards. So if you try casting some magical, hoobu jubu or whatever on me, I'm going to be able to tell, and ain't going to fly. Anyway, Daniel, brother, who is our first call for tonight?
Hey, it's our buddy out in Europe, in Austria, no less, Pavel.
Pavel, what's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
I'm fine. I'm healthy. I still have my job, so shit did not hit the fan yet.
Excellent.
I'm not on the streets yet, so currently, as far as my material conditions are currently concerned, it is as good as it can be under the current, let's say, downward trend we have here.
I feel you, brother. Well, stay safe. Make sure you take care of yourself. We're with you in spirit.
Your community is great. They gave me a lot of, let's say, help, and helped me to a little bit to unwind here. So much thanks to Nyarlathotep and Dale.
Fantastic. That's great to hear, brother. I did put a message in with our international department.
Yes, I have seen it. Yes.
Okay, great. Oh, so awesome. Okay, so what's up? What do you got for us tonight, Pavel?
Yeah. Following question in regards to organizing. I frankly have currently multiple plans in work for next year. So one is if I cannot move out due to, let's say, material conditions changing for whatever reason, I will try to build up a community here in the village where I live in.
Great.
Don't know how successful it is, but I will give it a try.
How big is the village you live in? Like
probably
rough population size.
500, 600 people.
Oh, that's all right. That's perfect, brother. Seriously, like people think that you need to be in like a big city where there's a lot of liberals and activism already going on. I think that's backwards. I think
you have a very traditional-minded community here. You have a very traditional-minded community here.
That's what's up.
I think the only thing I think you really need to do here is break them away from the thinking that the capitalist system is how it has to be and will ever be.
I think that's always the $1 million question, right? I think, look, small towns are the best for organizing because it's already sort of a more intimate setting. You can get to know these people. They're your neighbors. It's not someone who lives, 30 miles away. It's not, some middle-class jabroni or whatever I like saying the word slamboni. I don't know why. That's going to look down their nose at you for, using the wrong pronouns or something stupid, right? It's going to be your
No, no. Thankfully, I can tell you right now that Austria does not have the liberal mind virus in regards to wokeism to this point. Wokeism is only a very minority thing in Austria.
Awesome.
It exists.
That's
yes.
Good. So when it comes to small towns and sort of getting people over the idea that nothing ever changes, point out the fact that actually things are always changing. Point out the fact that, for the most of human history, we didn't even have a concept of property, right? We didn't even have nation states. All of this is so relatively new, right? And then since this begins developing, it's been changed all the time. Since then, what happens is a certain status quo begins to deteriorate and can no longer hold, right? And that's when
I agree with you.
About.
I mean,
and you just talk to them. You say, hey, look around. What's happening right now? That status quo can't hold. We can't keep going on in the old way. So what we need to do is get together and figure out something new.
Yep, I agree with it, but this is like one of my plans for, let's say, next year, which I will follow in parallel. I have also 2 other backup plans running also there, depending how my material conditions will be next year. But let me come to my question. My question is the following one. The question of this digital-based currencies, which is upcoming because the plane of the maniacs like Macron in the EU is, and I probably guess with how huge the debt is in the US, I would even bet my money if the maniacs here in the EU do it, the US will for sure do it first, or try to do something similar. So my guess is that with the next big economic crash, which is probably upcoming in the next 1 to 2 years, I mean, stock market crash. Yeah, I mean, the economic is not either way great. They will probably try to implement this in Europe, this digital currency, where they will bind the accounts of all Europeans to a system where the money they earn will get basically taxed on an individual level prior to the true taxes, and these taxes will be then siphoned to Brussels, to our lovely super banker Macron and our Hillary Clinton 2.0 von der Leyen, where they will build up their futuristic palaces, while everything else in Europe goes to shit, while making, of course, everybody poorer. Yeah, so the question is,
let me interrupt you real quick, Pablo. One of the biggest really expense that our taxes go towards in the US is interest on loans that the government took out from financial institutions. And I assume the EU is the same. Look,
yep.
This I don't think that going to a digital currency is where the world is going to be headed.
This is not my problem. My problem is like basically they, with each income, they will remove with which basically they will tax the money on the accounts, not for like earnings, but literally the money on the accounts individually, and will remove this as an additional fee on top on all of the taxes you are regularly paying. And this is then siphoned out of the countries you are actually living in to fucking Brussels, impoverishing basically everybody.
That's what they do. And it drives me so crazy because every time, and what it really is our modern like sort of economic system is literally a Ponzi scam. Literally a Ponzi scam. Since
I arrived I arrived in the chapter to on surplus value by Marx, and it's literally what he describes.
Wait till you get to volume 2 when he begins talking about bank capital and finance. Because where we're at right now is sort of like, because he begins with surplus value after money, right? But our money isn't even money anymore. Our money is created at the moment of credit creation. So what they do is they create new credit, and then that expands the money base. But the problem is they continue creating new credit to, inflate asset prices, and it divorces the actual value being put into society from exchange value, right? So
it is not connected to anything material, and that's why it's doomed to fail.
Exactly. And then when money starts coming out, or compound interest rates make it so we can't pay back the loans, it all comes crumbling down. And what do? They tax the working class some more, right? And they're like, oh, that'll solve it. But all that does is keeps us getting poorer, like you said, and the elites getting richer. And what it's going to take is us organizing and getting rid of these, monstrous, decaying financial cartels that run everything.
I agree. My point to this is, how do we organize if they implement this bullshit, which would allow complete tracking of everything, and then debanking on, let's say, on a literally press of the button.
But that's another one of these $1 million questions. Look, I have a book that it's on its 12th rewrite. I've been writing this book for so long and promising people it's almost done, but I keep going back to it because I keep concretizing the theory more. And it's the theory I call reproletarianization, right? Where the middle classes are dying off and decaying and reproletarianizing. The problem is, during proletarianization, there was expansion of capital, right? Which meant new means of production were always coming into existence, but we don't have that anymore. And so in order to continue the exchange processes, which is what's become our sort of center of human interaction, they have to create new debts. And that's where all that comes in, right? The reproletariat stand in contradiction, not with industrial capital like us in the proletariat do, but with finance itself, right? And so this requires a new form of organization. So I foresee and plan to fight for things like debt organizations, debt unions being created, right? That can tactically pull our combined weight as debtors, right? Because we're all forced into this debt to buy a car, to buy a house, to go to school, everything, right? But when we combine our power, we have control over giant institutions like Citigroup, right? Like Deutsche Bank in Germany, right? If we can withhold debt payments on specific dates at specific times, we can control the economy. And that is just as important as control over things like transport of commodities, things like telecommunications. All of that is super important. And I think
I agree with
the
you.
primary form of organization in the 2020s.
I agree with you, but the problem is, if you have it completely automatized, how it will be with this digital currency system, you will not be able to block shit.
I think
because it's not in your control.
I think there's creative ways to get around stuff like that would be a conversation for those sort of organizations to go over. I mean, you could literally create bank runs, right? Everyone could withdraw all their money at once. That kind of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff you can do, but it's all, to use my favorite Stalin quote, it's all based on everything really depends on the time, conditions, and place. I don't want to spend too much time.
Okay, then we will not continue. We still have other guests, but it was as always. It was great speaking with you. It was great speaking with you.
Always a pleasure, brother. We love your calls here. Thank you, and I guarantee we'll talk to you next week. I'm sure, Pablo. Take it easy, brother.
Bye bye.
Look, everybody. I think this is something that we don't, as Marxists, get told to think about, because a lot of the old falsifications, the dogmatists, etc., try to treat modern 21st century financial capitalism as if it's 1864, right? But that ain't the case. It just ain't. We're in a period of history where money is no longer even money, and the anarchy of production is a thing of the past, right? We live in a planned economy these days. Production has been socialized, but profits are still privatized. So that contradiction hasn't been resolved. It's gotten worse. And I don't know. I don't want to waste too much time on it. Who do we have next, Daniel?
Hey, Noah, we got our a friendly neighborhood pun maker, John.
Excellent. What's up, John? How you doing tonight, brother?
Well, Noah,
Hey, yo,
you know why?
wait,
Why is
before you
Ben?
start, I got one for you. You ready
All
for a
right.
joke from me?
Sure.
All right. But mine aren't always puns. So this is a joke, I swear to God, I made up when I was 16. And I've heard it in different forms since then. I will, to my dying breath, claim ownership over this joke. All right, there's two eggs and they're sitting in a frying pan, right? One egg turns the other egg. He's like, man, it's hot in here. We're going to die. And the other egg goes, whoa, a talking egg.
Yeah. Well, I guess he would have cracked otherwise.
Not a single, not even a crack of a smile. John's just like, yeah, okay, whatever, Noah.
Well, do you know why venison can be tasty?
Why is that?
Because it's deerlicious.
Hmm.
Can't trust those deer because they'll always pass the buck.
They will pass the buck, won't they?
Yeah.
All right, what's up, brother? What do you got for us tonight?
So today's question is, how I know the higher education here in the U.S., let's just say, has its share of controversy. How did the Soviet Union set up its fundamental R&D, like their equivalent of basic research, as well as higher education? I know a lot of academics in the U.S. spend time applying for grants more than actually doing research, but I heard in the early Soviet Union, at least, scientists would have like a stipend and often a lab space in comparison. So how did education and R&D, like everything from practical trades all the way up through like physics and engineering, get instructed in the Soviet Union? And how does China compare?
You know what's crazy? The golden age of American education during the mid 20th century was based on Soviet education theory, right? Pedagogy and some other stuff that sort of would filter students with different types of things they were good at. I forget the word for it. Into different avenues of education, right? And so if you're very good at what we call STEM these days, you go into a certain type of school. If you're very good in the arts, you go into another, etc. Right? And this is how the Soviet Union education system functioned, and it produced some of the best science of all time for the era. Right? It began to decay around the end of the Soviet Union. But what's really interesting to me is, like you said, like you could get stipends for research for anything as long as you showed promise in these areas of study, right? It wasn't really based on applying for grants and getting loans. You didn't have to pay for it. It was just supplied to you by society because it was sort of understood that you're already contributing to society, and it was investing in you and the future contributions you'll make. So the effect of the education would become its own cause into the system going forward. It's a very dialectical way of looking at it. But what I find really interesting is this way of segmenting things led to some really interesting research that we didn't even hear about until after the Soviet Union fell. Like, did you know that in the early 80s, they began working on a plan for a giant sort of solar panel that would be situated in space to provide free energy for the entire world. That was how they planned to combat the US domination of energy markets, to just cut the market out from under them. And they were making a little bit of headway. Obviously, they didn't make a lot, but a little bit.
Well, to kind of follow up on that, what form of that survives in Russia today, if any of it, and how does the Chinese model compare?
You did ask me about China. I apologize about that. So I'm not sure about modern Russia today. I don't think much of that survives. It was, and I don't want to act like Soviet education was perfect. It wasn't, by the way. In fact, towards the sort of 60s and 70s, they began really going downhill in terms of teaching people how to think. And Stalin even saw this coming, right? And he said that, back in the day, the revolutionaries were reading directly from Marx and Lenin. But this next generation, and then the one that followed, read from pamphlets and short essays, the textbooks summing things up. And they just didn't have as much of a grasp on the Marxist worldview, which is essential for understanding reality itself, right? And so Ilyenkov, one of my favorite thinkers of all time, complains about this, right? And he recommends a new way of addressing how education was even approached, right? To teach people, rather than memorizing things as we do here, to actually think critically. But China has a similar system to ours, but it's a more sort of meritocratic, where, here you could be brilliant as anything, but if you're born in the ghetto, you're almost certainly going to stay in the ghetto. You have to not only work harder than everyone else, but be luckier than everyone else to make it out. And in China, that's just not the case. If you excel in your studies, you can move up. So that's the major difference. Their universities have very, very large state subsidies, and ours are run like businesses. It's a factor of socialism that they're not trying to profit. They're producing things, including working class people, for their use value.
All right, I guess that was really taught them a lesson. So if a teacher has to run, I'm guessing they could really book it.
Yes. Do you remember? Nobody knows book it anymore. When I was a kid, anytime you had to run anywhere, you said you had to book. And it's a weird thing, but I don't know if it's a Midwest thing or an Ohio thing, maybe. But nobody knows what I'm talking about when I say book. Anyway, you're past your pun cutoff limit for the night, John. We'll talk to you next week, brother. All right, let's keep moving along, guys. Look, I want to address something in the chat before we move to our next one, though. Obi-Wan Kenobi has said this a couple of times now. Nazis are gaining traction online and becoming mega popular. And he's not wrong about this. There is a very worrying and, frankly, astroturfed neo-Nazi fad happening right now, right? And it's something the Communist Party has been combating on all fronts rhetorically. I mean, the leader of their sort of fake movement, which is actually, it's funny, real quick. It's funny that, like, liberals and anti-communists will say that we're terminally online when the Communist Party is organizing in the real world. But that's exactly what these neo-Nazis are, is mostly online. We've been combating them in this sort of war of positions on the internet nonstop since this phenomenon began arising. And all of the liberals who want to, make us all focus on their genitalia and other weird sex obsession stuff, seem to align with these neo-Nazis in attacking us. Not only that, they give them ammunition every time they attack us. So, materially speaking, they're allied to neo-Nazis, just like the old party. It's liquidated now, but they still run around pretending to be an organization. They're still vocally talking about their team up with the Democratic Party, who are funding a genocide, as if they're not aligned to Nazis and genocide. It's wild, the pretzels that we can think ourselves into if we don't think in a materialist mode. Anyway, who do we have next, Daniel?
Hey, we've got Frederick. The
What's up? It's me again, Frederick the Glorious.
Frederick the Glorious. What's up, brother? Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, man. I saw like your last part about the Nazis being online. I think what was her name? Nikki the Hellion, I think. Sorry if I butchered the name. She was debating Nazis because they were calling her Nazis. So, but anyway, my question here today is how would this great socialist experiment under the ACP, the government would look like? Would it be like the Soviet Union, or would it be more of like the GDR, where there were like other parties working with the party?
I think that's
that runs.
Well, first, Frederick, that's a really good question, right? Because one, we don't want to sort of get too utopian and begin planning out intricate systems and how things will work, but we do need a sort of general idea of what the future will look like in communist America. At the same time, though, one of the things that has held American communists back in the past was not understanding what we call the dialectic of universal and particular, right? So let me explain this in just sort of really simple, like quick terms, real quick. In Marxism, or in sort of bourgeois liberal ideology, formal logic, that kind of thing, what is universal is simply that which is not particular. That which is not particular is that which is not universal, right? But in Marxism, it's a little different. That which is universal is instead that which arises in many particular forms. And the form, a given, or the characteristics a given form of that universal takes on are derived from its particular aspect. So American communism is only going to be American. Yes, we can learn from the Soviets, right? Yes, we can learn from the Germans, the Chinese, everybody. But American communism will be American. And it will come out of the American class struggle. And it will come about addressing the contradictions in the USA. It will embrace the American spirit and its advance. So I often tell people, communism isn't some foreign thing coming to sort of force itself onto us. It is instead the fulfillment of everything Americans already believe in. When Lincoln does a powerful address over the graveyard outside of Gettysburg, right? And he says that these people died because the idea of a government of, by, and for the people is bigger than all of us, and something that the words can't even do justice to the struggle these men engaged in. When he says that is American communism, right? That struggle towards government of, by, and for the people. And so whether it has one party, 10 parties, whatever, I think the most likely scenario is probably one, as our founding fathers wanted, actually. Washington would not allow it in the party.
But what the Germans, the GDR did is there was one party that ruled everything, but there were other parties that ruled with it, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I mean, China has a similar thing. The Free Korea has a similar system where there's multiple parties, but there's one ruling party. You know,
Yeah.
for me, I think there's a lesson from the Bolsheviks and Lenin that can really teach us a lot about how it's actually the contradictions on the ground that are going to determine what that looks like. So in the
Yeah.
early USSR, there was an organized bloc within the Bolshevik Party called the Workers' Opposition, right? And
Mhm.
this consisted of ex-left SRs, ex-Mensheviks, all kinds of people that sort of they were from the working class, but they were there to sort of be a counterpoint to the party line and try to prevent dogmatism from arising. However, this backfired and they were getting in the way of progress and holding everything up over and over and over and over again to the point that Lenin called for dissolving an organized opposition bloc, right? And it passed almost unanimously. And at the same time, he was calling for the party to have more proletarians within it. So it wasn't that he was getting rid of working class leadership, but that he was disallowing formal blocks that exist in opposition to each other. Because at the end of the day, democracy can be held up by such a thing, right? If we're all just on one team, we have a more of a freedom of opinion. But if we split this team into multiple teams against each other, we're automatically already counterposed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think there was like a quote from like one of the leaders of the GDR that they wouldn't, you know, recognize a powerful opposition to socialism, you know, opposition to you know, healthcare for all or
Mm.
you know, housing and all that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Forgot what his name was. But yeah. But you know, parties could still form as long as, you know, they're able to work together for a greater cause, you know. Just like in the GDR.
Here's just my opinion, and I wish we had more time to really get into it. I think that
Yeah.
one political party is enough. I really do. I think that multiple parties, in some places, it's the tradition, right? In England, for example, there's 1,000 of them. In America, though, we really only have one party. Let's be real. The Democrats and Republicans are one organization. I mean, the idea that they're actually opposed to each other is silly. Nobody buys it anymore. If we have that, formally speaking, one party of the working class, then you get. I mean, look at the range of debate in the Communist Party of China. It's so much richer and more well-rounded than anything between the Democrats and Republicans here, you know, or libertarians and other or like fake parties, basically.
Yeah. But they're just there for show. That, you know.
Yep. It's sort of Carlos has a really good way of putting it. He calls it a pressure release valve, right? That if you get told there's a place for you that can sort of redirect any dissident energy you might have back into the system by saying like, oh, if you don't like the Democrats or Republicans, you must be a libertarian or green. That works for the ruling class, right? Which is why they don't care about Greens and libertarians. It's the Communist Party now that they're trying to crack down on.
Yeah, and if Harris was to win, it would have been game over for us.
Exactly.
But now that Trump has won, it gives us extra time.
I think you're right.
It gives us, just like Hawes said, it's now giving us extra time until the new regime goes in there.
I think you're right. And you know what? Like, Haas has a very really pessimistic view of how this is all going to go and how the state is going to crumble. And I see his point. He believes that like it's going to amount to chaos, and the organizations that can see the people through that chaos and out the other side and reestablish order is going to be the sort of revolutionary force. And I'm coming around to that way of thinking.
Yeah,
Obviously,
the clash conscious workers and people
precisely.
that see through.
100%, brother. Look, we're sort of running a little behind today. So do you got maybe
Yeah.
one other question for us before we go?
No, really.
Cool. Cool. That's easy.
Is
That's
there any
easy.
question you want to ask me in particular?
No, brother, I'm good. Hey, as long as you're expanding your mind and learning stuff, I'm a fan of whatever you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Like, I don't know. I like to think I'm good at seeing potential in people, right? And being able to tell someone who's
Yeah.
genuine from not genuine. And it doesn't matter where a person begins at, right? That's like liberals always want to like hate people for where they begin at. It's where a person ends up that really matters. It's that process of becoming who they're going to become. And you seem to be on a path where you're trying to find the real answers to the problems in this country. And I salute you for it. That's really all we need.
Yeah,
That is about finding the right info, you know?
Yeah, like the reason I was a monarchist was because I thought that was the answer to a system that is crumbling around me, you know.
Of course. I mean, that's to me, that's like a no-brainer, right? And it drives me crazy when people try to fly the red flag and like hate people for just having an opinion that like, what do you expect them to have if you say you're a communist and all you do is shout at them? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like to me,
Yeah.
I see someone looking for answers who already knows that this system has something severely wrong with it. Why would we not recruit that person? Tell them the truth. If you're a communist, the truth's on your side. And I mean, the truth is, these people who do nothing but shout at everybody else ain't communists, and they don't
Yeah,
understand what
like,
Marxism is. But you know, I
like,
could get up on a whole rant about that.
yeah, like the problem is it's a purity problem. Like if someone has a different opinion from the main, you know, group's opinion, they're immediately outcasted
Yeah,
by everybody else.
dude. Okay, write this down. The Purity Fetish and the Crisis of Western Marxism by Carlos Garrido. You're
Mhm.
gonna love this book. Get it. You can get it from the Midwestern Marx website. I seriously believe that this is one of the most important books of the 2020s. It's sort of one of the things I consider my greatest accomplishments is editing this book. And we spent months editing it to make it as good as it is. It will explain ideologically exactly why these people act like this and where it comes from and how we can overcome it. All right, brother. That being said, we're going to keep moving along. Awesome talking to you
Okay.
again, and I look forward to the next time.
Yeah, I'll see you next week, Noah.
Absolutely, brother. Take care. Have a good week. Man, I like that guy. You know what's funny? Like, how is it that and you know what's funny? Like anti-communists, anytime I say, like, dude, I talk to libertarians and people like, you know, monarchist, libertarian, there's a big pipeline there. And I get them on board for communism all the time. And anti-communist liberals, you know, the people that pretend to be communists will be like, no, you don't. You're just lying. Like, dude, what is this guy right here? And how did we get him, you know, on board? By just treating him like a normal ass person which is what he is. It's precisely what he said. The purity fetish of these liberals prevents them doing that. It's this sort of middle class conceit that wants that sort of forces them. And I mean, there's a whole reason for this that we can get into, but it forces them to look down on everyone they consider not as enlightened as they are. This comes about through the hyper alienation of modern bourgeois society, right? We are so far removed from our humanity, from what makes us human, which is labor, right? That anything needs to fill that void. We need to have some sort of connection. And so these dogmas, right, and social cliques that become part of a personal identity fill that role. And what they need to do as part of that, and this is part of where, COINTELPRO and all that kind of stuff comes in, is shit on everyone outside of that subculture, that clique. And that's sort of what makes that clique important and individualistic at the same time as being a sort of abstract community. Who do we have next, Daniel? Daniel, hello.
Sorry about that. Hey,
You
we've got
better.
Corbett.
Sorry, you son of a bitch. I'm just kidding, man. I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries.
It's getting late for me.
No, it was you can't really give up an opportunity to drop a nice little well-timed expletive. We've got Corvus.
Well-timed expletive. That's the name of my next album I'm putting out. Noah and the Wizard Killers. Well-timed expletive. I am very stupid tonight. I apologize to everybody watching. We got Corvus. What's up, Corvus? Please do something to make me shut up.
Okay. Well, I came on to ask, do you know if there would be any need for like editing work on anything from the Midwestern Marx Institute publisher? Like specifically, I noticed that there was a charity anthology for poetry anthology for Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
If they have another one like that, if I could help edit it.
Absolutely, brother. Yes.
I don't know.
Email us at midwesternmarks@gmail.com. Say who you are and tell that like put in the email, remind, because it'll be me, Carlos, and Eddie checking it. Remind us that you're Corvus and you spoke to me about editing work. There is always copy editing to be done. Always. And book projects, there's all kinds of stuff. We're overloaded with work. So if you can help, we will absolutely put you to work.
Okay. I would probably be best in poetry because like I have more experience with poetry than any other kind of editing. But any editing whatsoever would be good, even if it's just proofreading.
You know what's really cool is Danny does poetry quite a bit, right? And none of us are familiar with it at all, right? To me, like I don't know what's a good poet. I mean, I've read poets that they tell me are good, and I've read, poets that who knows, right? I can't tell I'm nothing at poetry. I know nothing about it, just like I know nothing about art, right? So having someone that can actually edit Danny's poetry and knows it well would be really, really helpful.
Okay, great. So I need to email Midwestern Marks
at gmail.com.
Gmail.
Yes.
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah, I have like over a decade worth of experience writing poetry, and I've edited a few anthologies for poetry as well. So
very cool.
I can help.
Well, hey, if you're looking to publish stuff, we can take a look at that stuff too. Always willing to work with people. You're a party member, right?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
I've been trying to talk with someone where I could join. The thing is, I'm not sure if it feels right if I should join because I'm not currently unemployed as well, but I'm still looking for a job.
Hey, so that's like a party member. See, here's the thing. A communist party is made up of those who are dedicated to the struggle of the working class. You don't have to
Okay.
come from the working class. I mean, look at Lenin. Lenin was a lawyer, one of the greatest heroes of the working class in human history, right? Look at Marx. Look at Engels. Engels was basically bourgeois, right? But he's Engels. So it didn't matter. At the end of the day, if you're willing to fight for the liberation of the working class and understand that it's through this that all of humanity is liberated, then definitely apply. And that's regardless of if you're like, temporarily unemployed and you are from the proletariat or you're from the reproletariat, whatever. What we need is dedication.
Okay, that's encouraging because I didn't know if that was a requirement or not. So
No, it's not required. We are very proud of the fact that we're the only organization of our type that that is actually majority blue collar working class people, and we want to try to keep it that way. But that doesn't mean that you have to be that to be involved at all. I think it's actually rather telling that our organization, the Communist Party of this nation, is mostly blue collar working class people. When all of the so-called left-wing organizations coming from the last period of history are predominantly middle class, like vast majority middle class. And I think there's a reason for that.
well, I'm definitely not middle class. I'm more of the lower class right now because obviously I don't have work, but I'm still looking, so that's good.
Absolutely, brother.
And I might join anyway, even though don't currently have a job. So
Well, there you go. If look, I don't know what you've done in the past or whatever, but if I can make a suggestion, the trades.
Trades.
Yes, there are some great unions, and even trades that aren't heavily unionized are looking for people. My wife's whole family are in a couple of unions: the pipe fitters, the insulators, the electricians union, the International Brotherhood of Electricity. Like, there's a ton of great unions out there, and a lot of them will train you themselves in the jobs, and then get your work for you. When you start learning how trade unions work, they're really, really, really nice to be involved in. And if you're looking, maybe cast an eye in that direction.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to learn a trade. I just love learning in general. So
That's
even whether it's a manual skill or intellectual skill or anything like that, it's fine. I love learning. So
absolutely, brother. Me too. Literally, like, I wake up at 4 a.m. And actually more like 3 a.m. lately because I'm kind of a maniac, specifically to learn, and well, also for party work and institute work, but to learn, right? That started with me waking up that early in order to get through Hegel. So more power to you, brother. That's about all we got time for tonight, I think.
okay.
And
I'll email you. I'll email at midwesternmarks@gmail.com. Okay.
yes, sir. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you again. See you later.
All right. Thank you.
Looking forward to
Bye.
hearing from you. Dude, that's what's up.
Thanks.
Why can people, like, this is what drives, and this is the difference, right? Why I tell Corvus here to apply for the party and not these like middle class pseudo intellectuals on social media that like sort of hang hammers and sickles all over themselves. What did he obviously get through here? He likes to learn and he wants to help. That is the message of that call. I want to help. I like to learn. That's all you need. So many people make it very evident that they're more interested in pretending to know things than actually putting in the work of knowing things and actually learning them, right? For every 80 people who tell me they know what Marxism is, and they're, whatever. Either they say they're for it or against it. 79.5% of them have no idea what it is. Only a half a person knows what it is. Seriously, it's crazy to me how people can't like, if you want to talk about a subject, learn about it. How hard is that? I don't know. I hear we got a special guest coming up next.
Hey, yeah, we do have a special guest. He had to run and go take some antihistamine medicine. I think he's having some allergy attacks right now.
Allergies are brutal, man. Dude, when we went to Dearborn for the Institute for a Free America conference, the pollen was so like thick and bad that the table outside at our Airbnb, which by the way, anti-communists were saying was like our house or something, and we were like living in this nice, so stupid. Anyway, it was so thick that like there was like a little layer of green dust on everything. And the one morning I woke up and my eyes were so swollen that I couldn't see. Thank God for Claritin. What's up, Brad? How you doing?
That makes two of us, man. The allergies are killing me.
I feel you. Yeah, Daniel was just saying you went to go get some antihistamines.
Yeah, no, I just popped some. I got bronchitis last week, which was a shame. Your boy Hilale came down to see us. By the way, is my camera on? It seems like it is.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's awesome.
All right.
I've heard all about that trip, and it sounds like it went really well.
I mean, I heard it went great. I couldn't be there, which is not so great. I was itching to meet Hilale, but it is what it is. Maybe next time.
Definitely next time. He is seriously like possibly the most impressive guy I've ever met. I mean, the guy has multiple master's degrees. He's now the high sheriff of Orange County, Vermont. He's been organizing his entire life, knows everybody. And here's the thing. He has been attacked ruthlessly by anti-communists and anarchists and, the left anti-communists for so long and in such disgusting ways. But he hasn't lost his optimism. This guy can walk in the room and put everyone in a good mood. Seriously, like, it's insane. Like, just talking to him is like, oh, things are going to be cool now. He's just like the nicest guy. It's crazy.
Excuse me, let me blow my nose real quick.
Sure. Hey, Daniel, real quick, while he's doing that, can you put a link to the Discord in the chat again? I'm being told that the link in the comments doesn't work. I apologize for that. Like, maybe this is something Red can help me with later, dude.
If somebody got banned from the server, then it wouldn't. It won't work. We had a case of somebody with a voice changer in the waiting room that we had to. It's a little sketchy. If you're gonna use a voice changer, you could make some pretty annoying sounds on the stream, so we can't have that.
Yes.
So if it's that person, then you know why you got banned.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I assume it's just a random person wanting to call in.
Yeah, no. We'll swap out the link, no problem. And if the guy comes back here and just does his voice changer thing again, you just get banned again. No skin off our teeth.
Sounds good, brother. Well, I'll talk to you after this about like a permanent link. But so what's up? We'll put a new link in the chat for you, Guillermo. Can you get that for us, Daniel? Anyway, what's up, Red? What do you got for us?
Nothing. I wanted to ask you, like, what do you make of Trump? What do you think? What do you think is going to happen? Why do you think he won? What do you disagree with? Like, with the people who are saying he won because of this or that? What do you disagree with? What do you agree with? Just curious what you got to say.
Liberals are like, I don't understand how they're so surprised. He won in a landslide because he's the only one who is actually saying anything, right? And I think this term is going to be, well, the first question is, are they going to try to shoot him again or not, right? Which is an option that may happen. But I think this term is going to be where he loses his luster for his following. And this kind of happened the first time. But here's the thing is MAGA, like the MAGA movement, isn't afraid to call Trump out when he's not delivering, right? When he says he's the peace candidate but pushes for war, for instance. And so I think as communists, the first thing we need to understand is this is something that we should talk about. That Trump may say a lot of great things, but let's look at what he actually does.
You would hope that they do that for like any given politician. If we had more of that, then we'd be in a better spot.
Precisely. And people look at Trump like he's different in some way because he will tell the truth rather than lie. He doesn't sound like that polished bullshit that you get with establishment politicians, right? And he is a wild card, and so the establishment is aligned against him. That doesn't mean he's, somehow going to take down the system. He's not. And so I think the way I sort of present it to people is like, look, even if Trump wants to do everything he says, right? The swamp isn't drained. Hillary Clinton is not locked up. Productive industry has not been brought back.
A friend of the show, Alexander from the Marx-Lenin Institute, he said that if he had locked up Hillary, like he said, he would be serving his third term right now.
100%. Like, he would be a national hero and an icon. He would have gone down in history as an American hero if he would have just done that. Because no one in our ruling class ever goes to prison. If he would have done that, people would have forgiven him for anything else. That would have been amazing. I would have endorsed him. And I've never been a Trump guy. But
I want to push back on only one thing, though. Like, I suppose you say it was a landslide, and I suppose by technicality it was, but his voting numbers didn't go up by that much. In as far, like, if you look at how many votes he got in 2016 compared to now, it's significantly more. But between 2020 and 2024, I think it leaves a lot to be decided. As far as I can see it, my intuition is it's more that the Democrats just ran an incoherent, awful campaign.
Yep.
And people were like, I want anybody but that. And I feel like modern politics is mostly defined by that. Like, that's how we ended up with the fat ass we have in my country. That's how Argentina ended up with Milei. That's how, I mean, and it happened in America, both in this and the previous election. People didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump. And now they're not voting for Trump. They're voting against Biden. It's just this endless back and forth. Like, there's just no vision, no direction. It's like you're picking a captain, but then the captain doesn't really steer the ship.
Right. I mean, what did Lenin say? Like, every 4 years we get to choose who runs the exploitation of the country. Right? They don't really change much because that would change that setup. I think, though, it was a sort of referendum on rad-lib wokeism at the same time that the rad-lib wokes were rejecting the Democrats for their rabid genocidal mania. So it really just, everything is backfiring on the Democrats right now, who, they're the source of wokeism. And it's not just the Democratic Party, but all of the institutions around them, right? It's the Open Society Foundation. It's the Rockefeller Foundation. It's Citigroup. Big one is Citigroup. It's Raytheon. It's these sort of institutions that push wokeism, that sort of try to, we don't have to get into a big deal. We've gone over what wokeism is the whole time. So there was a referendum on this, plus the referendum against the genocide, where the Democrats were counting on getting that rad-lib vote because it's pretty big in the millennial generation and the Zoomer generation, and it's just not there anymore for them. So you got rad-libs not only moving away from the Democratic Party, but also less rad-libs than there were, and so they just didn't turn out, and that's how Trump wins in a landslide.
This is a read I have based on a recent election we had in my country, where the right wing did pretty well, and it did pretty well among a constituency that is arising, which is if you remember in 2019 we had big protests here in Chile, and they were all very like ambiguous but lefty, right? Like we want socialism, we want a new constitution, we want to bury once and for all the legacies of Pinochetism, and pretty much. Every single person who was involved in those protests that didn't become particularly ideological voted right wing in that last election because they're sick of they're sick of the opportunism of like people like Boric saying like, okay, we're gonna everything you ask and more, we're gonna give it to you. We're gonna have better healthcare. We're gonna have free education. We're gonna have better transport. We're gonna have this and that. And now he becomes the least supported Chilean government in its history after Pinochet, right? People are just like, this shit doesn't work. I don't want nothing to do with it. I'm just gonna vote for whoever is against it, right? And you get some pretty weird esoteric right wing parties. It was a local election, so you got a lot of weird stuff going in. But the right wing went up big, and my read on it is that people got a taste of what unorganized activism and unorganized protesting looks like, and they were like, in the moment they were like, oh, we're gonna get everything we want, this is great. And then when it didn't, they were like, oh, activism is just anarchy, activism is just chaos, we can't have that again. Like I saw it, I was there, we can't do it again, right?
Yeah.
And it's the consequence of having letting the petty bourgeois, the undefined left, all these individualists run amok us, and then they know everything that they want, but they don't know how to get it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And that's the thing, is because and we can sort of point a lot of this to the purity fetish, right? They eat themselves before they can get anything accomplished, and this is on purpose, right? The whole point of them is to never get anything accomplished. Look, these same forces in the U.S. Owned what was called the left over the last 40 years. And this is a period in which we saw the largest protest demonstrations in all of the country's entire history. And they changed nothing, not a damn thing. And we're in this period now. And tell me if you agree with this, something has changed. And for me,
I mean, like people see the necessity of discipline. People see
Precisely.
the necessity of unity and action. They're like, if you're gonna get protests the same size again, people are gonna be like, I'm not just gonna go out there, march for 2 months, and then go home.
Right.
Like that's not gonna motivate anyone. There is that collective memory now that we tried that and it didn't work. So if we're going to protest, what do we learn from it? How do we advance? How do we avoid the failures of the past?
I think that's absolutely the case, and that's really good to hear that this is happening in Chile. I think.
I mean, sorry, but like I think it was. I know the BLM protests over there had the same effect, but it was significantly bigger here. The government was on the brink of collapse, and I mean, it's a Pandora's box, right? Like, had it collapsed, what would have happened? Who the fuck knows? But
Right.
I mean, I don't know if I'm to say like I'm glad it didn't, because it's dubious if people like me would have had a big influence on that. But maybe if it had, then the institutional exit strategy would have given this amorphous, diluted bloc better footing to actually try to coalesce. Who knows? It wasn't to be. So this is the reality that we had. And in a certain way, it's because we didn't have that unity and that discipline that it didn't collapse, right? So it couldn't be any other way.
There was no uniting force to get all of these people on the same page to act in an organized manner. And that's what the ACP wants to do here, right? And I think here's the thing, and I don't know if Chile is a little different, but something has changed in the US, and it begins changing in 2008 and then really accelerates in 2020 with the onset of COVID, and then it sort of gets to its tipping point in 2022. So now we're living in this like rapid onset of revolutionary conditions where people actually need change. And before this, they could be satisfied with just going out and complaining at a protest when they're upset about something. There was no necessity to it. But now
I think we have the same effect as you,
right? Where they need something to actually happen. So they look at these groups like that, called themselves left wing and go, what have you done for us? Nothing.
I think we have the same effect as you, just with a bit of a delay, because it hasn't been for a long time that America has been in it's been in as a decaying empire since the 2008. But as you say, like since 2022, it's in real free fall. Like it's bad. And about a month ago, the price of the dollar spiked, and all the groceries here went up. Like cost of living crisis is finally hitting us. It took a while. With COVID we had it, and then we had like the generalized inflation that the whole Western world and its vassals had. But we had a bit of a dampening on it because we do have like more trade with China, and that for complicated reasons allows us to trade more with America, because with China we trade with dollars, right? So when China buys from us, we get dollars, we can then buy from America. It helps us out with the balance. But the contracts are tightening, and especially with Trump, who is a bit more anti-China than Biden is. It made the dollar spike because of the promised tariffs and whatnot.
Yep.
And we're getting there where it's to the point where it's like, well, I don't envy the historical Communist Party in this country. They are in this government. This is their mess to clean up. So we're hoping to be able to slam the table pretty strong and be like this is where the real communists are. This is your mess. You're gonna have to. You made your bed. Now you gotta lie in it. We want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, no kidding, brother. I think end of the day, it's put up or shut up time. I think for all of us, right? You mentioned Trump and the promised tariffs, and I think this is an interesting contradiction within MAGA. That they are isolationists who need international expansion, right? That because we don't make anything here, a tariff barrier is going to be really difficult to pull off without it driving the price of things up here and affecting the worth of the dollar, right? Which is not something you want to do when the worth of the dollar is steadily declining anyway as BRICS sort of comes into being, right? So it's this weird setup where I think the tariffs may be a bluff, or they may just not be able to go into existence. Like, what does the U.S. even make anymore? You know what I mean?
My read on it is that Trump is going to try to put tariffs in order to start developing manufacturing in America. But again, I cite him again, Alexander from the Marx-Lenin Institute. He points out that Biden tried the same efforts, but instead with tariffs, he tried to use subsidies. And these huge Wall Street monopolies, amalgamates, just ate the money up, put in investments that went nowhere, because you can have the money and you can have the technology, but you need to develop engineers and technicians who have experience using these things. Otherwise, you need to develop it from scratch, or you need to brain drain. You need to go somewhere else where these supply chains already exist and get people who know what they're working with, right? So sure, you could go to TSMC and like pay them a ton of money, bring their engineers over and whatnot, but that takes time, it takes planning, and it takes more than the American capitalist class is willing to give, because those guys are in it for the money. And as far as
not only that, let me interrupt real quick. Of course, they're definitely in it for the money, but here's the thing with the debt economy, right? We're at this point where bringing production back to the U.S. cannot happen under this system, because the actual rate profits made at is so low. They they need people to be able to make enough money to buy these things. Like the profit wouldn't work out bringing it here, paying our workers so much more to make it more conducive to actually get the commodities made, right? And continue our sort of without plummeting our standard of living and paying us so much less.
I mean, that if it was pulled off, that would be the effect. Inflation, like the inflation, the cost of the things that would be produced would go up so high that you will in effect have third world wages.
Precisely, and they're not going to do that, and that would be the American people revolting, right there. There's no way that we would be able to, we would ever put up with that. And
let me push back on that. I would say that's the way things are headed. That's what's happening.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's, I mean, what do you think creates the ACP, right?
Yeah, no, I see you. But you said that like that couldn't happen. I was like, I'm not so sure. I think it is happening.
No, what I mean is like actually putting this in place and bringing production here within this system is going to just create crises. It can't, like what they say is going to happen with it can't happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course. Like what's the saying from it's an American book? The best laid plans of mice and men never come to be. Something like that.
Yeah, the best laid plan. Yeah, I don't remember. We have another saying though. If a politician is talking, he's lying.
That's more succinct, more punchy.
I don't know.
Thank you for your time, but this is all I can bear, dude. I need to go sneeze. I need to go blow my nose. My I feel like I'm gonna explode. So thank you for having me,
brother. Take care of yourself.
See ya.
Good friend of the Institute and the founding manager of our production team. That guy's a hero. He gets things done. We love Red. Who do we have next, Daniel?
Hey, we've got West Country Commie.
West Country Commie. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I don't know. Could be back again after last week.
Absolutely. Yes, I remember. So what do you got for us this week?
Well, basically, I'll just start off. Still quite new to Marxism, I gotta say. Still reading through the basics. Well, hadn't even got to Capital yet. And obviously, read a few things from Engels, Lenin. And one thing I just want to ask you is, what do you think is the best bit of writing, or at least writings from Stalin? Because obviously, well, seeing the chat, he's been brought recently as well. I've read a few of his so far. I think I've read so far Foundations of Leninism, Intellectual Historical Materialism, also Leninism or Trotskyism. I don't think he's a guy who gets enough attention for what he wrote.
Yeah, he's brilliant. And I actually have all of his collective works down here. If you see them, they're being hidden by by one of my journals right now. But he's really, really underrated as a theorist. So
absolutely.
One of my favorites is Economic Problems of Socialism in USSR. What's weird though is because give me 1 second. Sorry. I gotta type a secret message to Daniel real quick without you guys knowing.
Yeah, that's all right, man.
All right. So yeah, what's funny though is I read them in these like oldie like collections. So like often I don't remember what the actual pamphlet or book was called. I just remember it in my collected works 8 or whatever. But you've already read one of his best, which is Dialectical and Historical Materialism, which is good to sort of begin thinking in a Marxist mode, right?
Yeah, I mean that was actually my first Stalin reading I read as well.
I would pay a lot of attention to the short course, which is he kind of oversees putting it together, which that's a part of, and Marxism and the National Question is maybe his most famous pamphlet. It's really, really, really good. But yeah, Economic Problems is good. If you're see, here's the thing: when you're learning the Marxist worldview, the way I try to help people begin learning is different from others, where I believe people need to start thinking in a developmental Marxist mode before anything else. And so I have a very like step-by-step way to bring people along into doing that. And that Stalin is one of them. But really, before you get to Capital, take an excursion into what we call the school of creative Marxism, founded by Ewald Ilyenkov. His doctoral dissertation, and now this is kind of advanced. I would maybe recommend reading one of the Soviet textbooks first, or maybe you're British, something by Cornforth on dialectical materialism. I think he has one called Materialism and the Dialectical Method. That's pretty good. But anyway, Ilyenkov's doctoral dissertation is absolutely brilliant and easy to read. It's called Dialectics of Abstract and Concrete in Marx's Capital. And I always recommend people read that before reading Capital, because frankly, before I read that, I'd read Capital a couple times and I'd read it wrong. Most of what I got from it was wrong. I didn't understand the depth of what I was reading. And once I read that dissertation by Ilyenkov, I got it.
I just want to say as well, though, because I mean, after reading Stalin, though, I think it really can help people move away from the compatible left to actually proper Marxism, because especially in Britain, like our compatible leftist space is just dominated by the Trotskyists, and well, you can imagine what that's like anyway. But I mean, when you actually get beyond that idea that Stalin is just this evil guy, and then you actually hear his words, you're like, wow, actually, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not nothing we've been made out like he was to the Trotskyists. Well, sorry if I lost what I was going to say there, but I think I got my point through.
You're absolutely right. And it's so funny. I always say, like, they tell us that, we can't do communism because Stalin will come along and eat all our babies, and then he'll eat our babies. And he just forces everyone to give him their babies to eat. It's so dumb. And it's funny because you read his work and you're like, clearly, everything I've been told about Stalin is a lie. And then, like, they try to put him in line with Hitler and the Nazis, right? Go try to read Hitler's book, and it is the dumbest, whiniest nonsense in the world. It reads like these liberals who pretend to be on the left these days. It really does, which is crazy to me. But well, night and day.
Yeah, I think the big reason why, because the ruling class, they read what you're reading Stalin. Because one example I'll bring up for you, because obviously English, but one quite big chain of bookstores over here is called Waterstones. Like, you'll see it in like every big city or large town. It's where you find quite a few books there. I mean, if you go into like all the theory stuff, you may find a few Marxist books like Capital and the Manifesto. I mean, you'll easily find like Mein Kampf there, but what you'll never see is any work from Stalin. Never anything like that. And also recently, they've now stopped selling Lenin there, because clearly he's too much of a problem now for the masses to be exposed to.
I think there's a reason for that. I was just talking about this with our previous caller, who's a friend of ours. We're in an era of change and an era of revolutionary potential, and the ruling class is going to do everything it can to keep us away from learning from Lenin and Stalin and Mao and even the great Soviet thinkers. Like, we could go down the line, right? My favorite's obviously Ilyenkov, and I highly recommend, before tackling Capital, read his dissertation. But that's going to increase, and I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years' time we see Marx getting pulled off of shelves. Right now, they sort of believe that their falsifications will continue working, and they're just not going to. I don't know. That's my tinfoil hat theory anyway.
Oh, yeah, I'd say it's right as well. I mean, clearly the people who've seen written by him don't know now about what he wrote anyway.
Right. All right, brother. You got anything else for us tonight?
No, just that, man. I mean, just really good to be on the show, man. Keep the struggle going over there across the ponds.
Actually,
all solidarity over here from Britain.
You too, brother. I want to say for everybody, I am working on a class that is going to teach Marxism through Capital. So we are going to be reading and understanding Capital as dialectical materialists. It's a lot to plan this class. This class, I envision it lasting years. Remember that, years. You know, I wish I could do it every day. I can't, not unless, you know, you guys are willing to pay me a salary. So so there we go. But it is going to be a long class and a very in-depth class. So each day of the class needs a plan, and we're going to go through all 3 volumes because I can't stress this enough. Do not just read the first volume of Capital. Read all 3. All right. We're out of time, but before we go, I want to say thank you to Michel Vincent Corbeau and Popers for the Midwestern Marx memberships. Scoop them up because I know they go really quick these days. But that's about it for us for the week. Thank you to all our callers. Thank you to everybody in the chat, all the super chatters, all that stuff. We'll see you out there, everybody, and have a great week.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken now they must give. And end the vanity of nations. We've but one earth on which to live. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in the song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the final drama, in the streets and in the fields. We stand unbowed before their armor, we defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come from above. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in a song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Unites the human race. Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possession.